Eclipse of the Ego by Mrs. Elaine Haussmann. In 1979, I was 26 years old and immersed in a lifestyle of comfort and worldly pursuits in Salt Lake City, Utah, USA. I had dropped out of college and become a fashion model. My spirituality at this time consisted of praying to God and merely hoping to get enlightened while high on drugs. My life goal was to be rich and famous. Besides my shady, get-rich-quick schemes in commodities, securities, mortgages, and real estate, I was successfully modeling in fashion shows 2 or 3 times a week. I felt that I was so special that I would inevitably be rich and famous. I would daily get high on drugs and thought that I was being cool when, in reality, I was headed inevitably towards self-destruction. A humble prayer for humility. That was when I witnessed something strange when attending the Awareness Center in Salt Lake City. I saw a woman hugging, with great reverence, a framed photo of a man with an African hairdo in an orange robe. I had never witnessed such odd behavior before and asked my counselor about the person in the photo. "That is Sai Baba, but I know you wouldn't be interested in him. He's not your kind of guy." But I was extremely curious and interested. So, he gave me a book to read, Sadhana, The Inward Path. This book is not a typical book about Satya Sai Baba filled with personal stories and miracles. There were no miracles or experiences described in it. It is a book of Sai Baba's core teachings on spirituality and the ideal way of life. I was incredulous that anyone would lead a life like this and assumed that it was written only for people in India. But there was something in it that I knew was true and enticing, a living on a path where every thought, word, and deed was saturated with God's love. Somehow, I was blessed to recognize the divine source and authenticity in the writing, solely by His grace, of course. I also received one major lesson from the reading. I was very arrogant at that time, and I felt that I needed to develop humility. Do not hesitate to practice humility and obedience, discipline and compassion. Give up pride in your status, wealth, scholarship or official position. I prayed to Sai Baba, "Dear Lord, you have given me everything. Now I just need humility." Incredibly, I prayed for humility while high on drugs and camping alone in the mountains. Coming down to earth, Sai Baba works fast. Within a week, I got a phone call from an ambitious man who was looking for investors for his new company, having to do with investing in gold and silver pyramids. I had cultivated business relationships with many investors over the years in my commodities, securities, and real estate endeavors. I was excited by the idea that we would be getting investment money to buy gold and get the gold molds into pyramids, displayed in a beautiful plexiglass case on velvet. How spiritual is that, I thought. Everybody knows that pyramids are spiritual. Not only would I become rich, but I would be holy, no less. My ego was out of bounds. At the end of November, my partner vanished with all the money and the gold, including my own, my father's, and his friends. He was a classic con artist, and even though I sought help from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, law enforcement authority in the USA, there was no way to get back the money. I came crashing down to earth from the imaginary clouds of hubris that I was floating in. After all, the root word for humility is humus, which means the mud, the earth. I was humbled in a way that I had never experienced before. I was now scared that people would come after me for cheating them out of their hard-earned money. Hope beckons in the depths of this crisis. I desperately wrote Sai Baba a letter explaining my predicament and asked him what I should do. I mailed it to him without expecting anything much to happen. A few days later, my mother tracked me down in Los Angeles and called me. This was in an era before mobile phones, and I wondered how she managed to do that. She told me that she had received a brochure from the American Astronomical Society, asked to travel to India and see the solar eclipse. The tour would take us to Hyderabad in India to see the total eclipse and then visit the city of Bangalore. I had never known my mother to travel without my dad. Added to this, Sai Baba's ashram was in Bangalore. That is why I felt that this was a response from Sai Baba. I gratefully said yes to my mother, feeling very much in my heart that I was saying yes to Baba. So, in February 1980, we went to India. I packed an assortment of my favorite recreational substances, and we joined the AS at JFK Airport in New York City. The AS had commissioned a photographer to go along the tour for professional eclipse photos and photos of the group of about 80 people. When I informed him that I was a model, he asked me to model a sari for him when we got to the renowned Taj Mahal on the tour. I looked forward with great anticipation to having pictures of myself and that iconic site in my portfolio. We flew to Hyderabad, where the eclipse was in totality. It was the new moon in February, which, of course, is the night of Mahashivratri. I was just starting to learn the meaning of it at Baba's ashram, where it was a time of all-night prayers, singing, and meditation. I went out into some fields in the countryside near Hyderabad to get a perfect view of the eclipse. I had taken some psychedelic drugs to enhance my experience, as was my habit. As the total darkness ensued, we were astounded to see a huge golden eagle fly right over our heads. I took it as a sign of Sai Baba's grace. The eclipse was a mystical experience. Back at the hotel that evening, as people were partying and drinking, I soon realized that the meaning of Shivratri was being perverted. My lifetime's misdeeds and egotistical actions weighed on me like an anvil of shame. I was completely mortified and cried for hours. Teachings that I had so blithely written off when reading the book Sadhana, the inward path, became not only desirable but a necessary way to reconcile the mess I had made out of my life. A very special journey. The AS group flew to Bangalore the next morning. I asked at the hotel desk in Bangalore and learned that Sai Baba was nearby at his Whitefield ashram, called Brindavan. At 6 a.m. the next morning, I took about 100 rupees, my camera, drugs, and a bedsheet in my travel bag, and said goodbye to my mom. I got a cab to take me to Whitefield, Sai Baba's ashram. As we pulled up to the gates, which were closed, a man standing there told the driver that Sai Baba had just left to go to Puttaparthi. I was devastated and wailed in anguish, "Take me to the bus station." They said that the bus had left hours earlier and it was too late, but they took me there anyway. When we got to the bus station, the Puttaparthi bus was still waiting there and had one seat left for only 5 rupees. I gave the taxi drivers a note for my mom back at the hotel, saying that I was going out to the wilds of India to Sai Baba's ashram, not believing that they would deliver it to her because I did not pay them to drive back to the hotel. Lessons on the bus. A photo of Sai Baba was hanging in the front of the bus with a fresh garland on it, which gave me a sense of relief. There were no other Westerners or English-speaking passengers on the bus, just country folks, children, and chickens. At each village over the 7-hour trip, the riders who were crouched in the aisle would get off, replaced temporarily by a stream of beggars. I tried to give money to one of the beggar children, and the young mother on my left slapped my hand to put the money away. It brought to mind the injunction in Satna about not giving money to beggars. She later took my money to buy milk for a sick woman, demonstrating that giving food or sustenance was appropriate. After a few more hours, my head was drooping forward with sleep and hunger when an orange dropped into my lap. I jerked my head up, looking around in surprise. Some girls with colorful saris and flowers in their hair near the front of the bus had conspired to pass the orange, seat to seat, to the strange American girl who was sitting alone on the bus. To me, it was a gift from Sai Baba. If he could inspire such kindness, perhaps there was some hope that he is really who he says he is, God incarnate. I ate the orange slowly, relishing it. It was about 3 p.m. when I reached the ashram in Puttaparthi. I was dressed inappropriately for the ashram, so the Seva Dal, volunteers, wrapped me in my sheet and took me to the accommodations office. I was assigned a room with a mother and a daughter from New York, which made me think of my own mother, who I thought was unaware of where I was and what I was doing. The ladies lent me a sari, choli, and skirt, wrapping it for me and dressing me up just like an Indian woman. The sight of God, through darshan, I excitedly went for darshan, with my camera swinging from my wrist, still wearing my sandals. There were no lines and few people there, perhaps 400 or 500 in total. Sai Baba came out onto the sandy area in front of the mandir. He slowly came straight toward me, staring like a fierce Shiva all the while. I put my camera up and began to snap photos as he walked closer, oblivious that this was completely forbidden. Entranced by his intense stare, I never put the camera down but received the full force of his eyes through the lens. Time stood still. I immediately experienced in my heart that he was a divine being, full of light and love. Although his look was intensely fierce, it conveyed a force of loving energy that I had never before experienced, filling me with unearthly bliss. It also conveyed the full aspect of all that I had become. It was as if I was a brilliant ball of light, covered with a thick layer of black sludge, like coal tar, which was my egotistical desire. I knew instantly that he was God, and yet I was also God underneath the black layer of ego. I felt love beyond anything I could ever imagine. It dwarfed any idea I had about love, bliss, or happiness. It was the highest high that I had ever experienced. There was a profound sense of peace, and my desperate quest to get the usual high was instantly and completely gone. After Sai Baba slowly shifted his gaze and walked on, I realized that the whole time, I had held the camera up to my face, and my entire darshan had occurred through the lens of the camera. After the initial embarrassment, I immediately thought that had the camera not been there, I might have been frightened by his intense and stern look. A simplistic thought, but that is how it felt. I discovered later that out of all the pictures I took, only one photo had come out when he was closest to me and giving me the profound darshan. As I sat, stunned, through the rest of the darshan, my mind kicked in, and I realized that my questions and doubts had been laid to rest, and the world was now a different place with deep meaning. Now, what do I do, was my prevalent thought. I could give up the world that I came from, renounce my life, my mother and dad, and stay at the ashram. Or should I go back to the world and try to lead a different lifestyle with my transformed self? I dazedly wandered out of the ashram grounds and found myself on the hill of the wish-fulfilling Kalpavriksha tree, a hefty climb up to a vantage point overlooking the ashram as the sun was setting. My initial concern was to figure out what Sai Baba expected of me now. Then, the old ego took over, and I thought about the trip I was a part of and my mom, and mostly about the opportunity to model at the Taj Mahal. I decided that I just could not give up the modeling opportunity. That being decided, I went down the hill to find a way back to Bangalore. Checking at the bus station and finding that no buses were going back to Bangalore that night, I started to get a little worried and frightened. I had about 70 rupees left, not enough for a cab ride. I knew that the Aas group was to leave Bangalore the very next morning for New Delhi and move on with the rest of the tour. Praying to Sai Baba desperately, I walked back into the ashram grounds. Almost immediately, a young man came up to me and said, "Are you ready to go back to Bangalore now? I have an empty cab and I'm heading back." We arrived back at the hotel at about 11 p.m. My mom's face was contorted from crying, and she hugged me quickly and said, "I was afraid to tell your father that I had lost you in the wilderness of India." She was praying to Jesus to send me back to her and has always looked at my return as a miracle from Jesus. She had not received my letter from the cab driver. Digging out my stash of drugs, I flushed them down the toilet. Lessons on how to live as a Sai devotee. We got on the flight to New Delhi the next morning. There, our group boarded two big tour buses for the 4-day Golden Triangle experience, Delhi to Jaipur, then to Agra, and back to Delhi. As the first day of travel progressed, I was impressed by a young man who was a helper accompanying the driver. At each rest stop, he would graciously help us down the steps and carry bags as needed while constantly wreathed in the biggest smile imaginable. He treated us like royalty. On the second day, I asked him, on a hunch, "Have you ever heard about Sai Baba?" He went ballistic with joy, chattering about how his cousin had been cured of a clubfoot, and his uncle had been cured of cancer, and on about how wonderful Sai Baba was. He then said, "But you're no devotee of Sai Baba. Just look at how inappropriately you are dressed." I did not quite understand what he meant, but he asked me if I wanted to seriously learn about Sai Baba and how to be a good devotee. The young man, Pavan, took his job to heart. Each morning, when I came to the bus, he would send me back to the hotel to change my clothes into something more modest. He made me sit near him in the front section of the bus with the driver while he regaled me with passionate stories about Sai Baba's divine nature, his teachings, and his miracles. Curing ego with ego prick. Days later, after checking into a posh hotel in Agra, I took out the fancy new green and gold sari, and I preened and prepared for my big day at the Taj. When we arrived at the beautiful Taj Mahal, we learned from our guide that it was free day, which was every Friday at that time in 1980. On free day, the locals can come into the beautiful grounds with no entrance fee and picnic or stroll about. The Aas tour photographer and I stayed behind the group and set up our photo session at one of the beautiful reflecting pools. People started to gather to watch, as it must have been an unusual sight. More and more of the dark-eyed men, women, and children watched as I posed and preened, and the photographer snapped pictures. The crowd started chanting, Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth. More and more people gathered until there was a sea of chanting faces surrounding us. Looking out at the sea of eyes that seemed to be adoring and worshipping me, I was mortified with shame for defiling the symbol of feminine purity that goddess Lakshmi represented. I had just seen what true purity and divinity were in Sai Baba, and here I was, masquerading as a pseudo-celebrity. All I could think of were the layers of egotar that Sai Baba had shown me and how unworthy I was of adulation. After getting into the cool, safe, and exquisite Taj Mahal interior, I started to laugh. Through the miracle of the crowd's adulation, Sai Baba had just cured me of any desire I had to ever be a model again. As a perfect closing zinger, designed to target my ego at its heart, the lesson was unmistakable, as not even a single photo of the Taj Mahal photo shoot came out. It made me laugh in delight over the blessed convolutions of the divine will and humor. It reminded me of the quote of how one can remove a thorn only with another thorn. God had used my attachment to the ego trip of modeling to remove it from my life for good. Treading the spiritual path is very essential. Because the effects of karma have to be removed by karma alone, as a thorn can be removed only by another thorn. You cannot remove a thorn by a knife, or a hammer, or even a sword. We boarded the airplane bound for home, where I tried to figure out how to best serve the Lord, who had given me so much. I could not associate with any friends because they were all involved in drugs and alcohol. The vermilion mark on my forehead from India kept them away with one look. I moved back to my hometown in New Mexico and embarked on a new life, making amends with my parents for my earlier bad behavior, and joining the Satya Sai Baba organization to serve him in any way possible. I visited Sai Baba's ashram 6 more times through the ensuing years, never receiving another intense look, word, or interview. I guess that one was enough. I try to follow Sai Baba's teachings and live according to the 5 human values. The ego requires constant vigilance to control. I pray, help me see myself and others the way you see, Lord, with the eyes of love. God has blessed me with a wonderful husband and 2 amazing children, and through His Leelas, He has continued to bless all of us throughout our lives. I bow in gratitude at the feet of the Father, Mother, Lord God of the universe, who guides us all if we just turn to Him. I serve in the SSU in any way I can, asking each day, how may I be of service to you? When feeling lost, alone, or sad, I meditate on the divine love He gave me in that wonderful moment of darshan. I believe the amount of God's love we feel inside is directly proportional to the love we feel for God, in whichever name or form He is most treasured in our hearts. Mrs. Elaine Hosman.